Welcome back to another episode of Spoiler Talk, where we talk spoilers. I'm your host, Kieran.
And I'm Jax.
And this week we're talking about the Mandalorian again. But just before we get into it, I just wanted to mention to all the audio listeners that we are also a video podcast on YouTube. I have found that more people are listening than watching. So I would like, if anyone's interested, check us out on YouTube, subscribe. We're trying to get to 100 subscribers right now, so we can change our channel name, which is proving difficult. But I am pleased with, audio has been going up and up. And I keep lagging a little bit behind, but like we keep saying, so much content around the corner.
Oh, yeah.
And that'll be all here very soon, because this is our last Mandalorian episode. And this week, we are spoiling The Mandalorian Season 2, Episode 8, Chapter 16,
The Rescue. So, I also just want to get right into it and say, we're called Spoiler Talk, where we talk spoilers, but seriously, I don't know why, for the love of God, you'd be getting it to this point if you hadn't watched this episode. But this episode, something big happens, and I just want to say spoilers, just because I had it ruined for me. And I've just got to say straight out of the bat, this is probably the most disappointed I've been since someone ruined Joffrey.
Oh.
What happened with that character in Game of Thrones. And like, they ruined it months beforehand. So I had this was 3 hours before I was going to watch it when I was still at work. I've never been more disappointed looking at an image that looks so good. So straight off the bat, I didn't really know how I felt. This is spoilers. So let's get to it. Luke Skywalker comes back and he steals Baby Grogu away like a monster. Or do I just think he's a monster? Because he's a PlayStation 2 character. It's the worst thing I've ever seen in my entire life. I've never been so excited with so many goosebumps and then seen something and wanted to literally kill it. I was like, someone get the Darksaber and chop this monster's head off. Leia looked kind of bad, but I was just like, ugh. This show is like 60% spectacle, 35% fan service, and 5% an amazing story about an adoptive dad trying to get this kid back to his family.
Yeah.
Why is the most fan servicey part of it the most ugly looking thing I've ever seen in my life? You've got Mando looking so goddamn good. They all look so good. Baby Grogu, everything, it looks so good. He looks so good. And then he's like, oh no, this, just as soon as he's putting the lightsaber on his way, I was like, this is all wrong. This, just the way they're doing it, they've made the wrong decision. This isn't the Sebastian Stan reveal. He's going to be CGI. And then it was the worst CGI. It was so much worse than Tarkin, than Leia, than anything I've seen in any movie. It's like, to call it a PlayStation 2 character is like insulting to PlayStation 2.
Because that was so much further back in time, and you can excuse that, and it has a defined aesthetic for the era.
For such a moment, like to be like, hey, you hate him in The Last Jedi? Look at him. His green lightsaber, just slashing droids, being the most awesome, cool guy ever. And I can't believe they decided if they were actually going to reveal this, actually do it. I still can't believe he's in the show, in a TV show. But then I'm like, he's kind of not though, because it's not a real person to me. And I don't believe that. It looks like a monster. What do you think?
I completely agree with you 100%. I think I was, very in for everything. The X-Wing arriving, landing, that building of excitement. I did not get it spoiled for me, so I did get to experience it. As soon as I saw the X-Wing, I knew.
That's my first thought, because for me, as soon as it came in, I just had this twinkling like, it's very Boba Fett. We just did this. Just the ship coming in.
Oh, right.
And
yeah.
I can't tell if I love or absolutely loathe the line where she's like, one X-Wing? What? That won't do anything. And I'm like, but it's
we're
Luke.
Saved.
It's like, but it's, we're saved. I'm like, but it's Luke, so you are saved, so shut up. I don't know, I hated it the first time, but it's fine. So right away you knew.
As soon as I saw the X-Wing, and if you were watching it unspoiled, that would have been when you put it together.
I think so too. The really interesting thing I found over the last few days looking at what people think about this, because it's big news, is that how many different people are like, X-Wing, and then you don't see the lightsaber, then it's green, and then you see the glove in this.
You see it on the security footage and it just looks white. Yeah. So there's a moment where you're like, could be Ahsoka, maybe, and then it cuts in, and he's
the green.
Yeah, and then it's like solidified, and then the gloved hand further solidified, and you know, I remember like as he's approaching the door, I just was like, go on, say it. My name's Luke Skywalker. I'm here to rescue you. I thought he was going to say it. And that might be one, like, let's talk about CGI face. It's no good. It's so far beyond what this show has demonstrated to be. It's, you know, the
Bare
level
minimum.
we're at. Yeah. I really, I think to try and understand the decision-making process that they had, the only thing I can kind of, to reason my way out of it is, because Mark Hamill played the character young and played the character old, they felt like they couldn't recast it. And they felt like having someone else be in the middle when it's him later and him there just wouldn't work. But I fundamentally disagree with that decision. I just don't like this trend at all. I've never liked it. I think just CGI face it's a weird line of suspension of disbelief for me, where it just completely sucks me out of the movie.
Yeah.
And for some people it doesn't. Like, for some people, Tarkin, like, no one was bothered. But my girlfriend and I saw Rogue One together, midnight screening. Yeah. She did not realize he was a CGI person.
Yeah.
As soon as Luke's face was visible, I was watching this with her. She was, you know, as soon as the episode finished, we obviously weren't talking when it was on, but her first reaction was, why did they do that? It kind of ruined it. Yeah. And I was like, yeah, kind of, like, I've felt childlike excitement so much and then been let down so much, and then have such an emotionally high moment right after that. And then R2 comes in, and, like, there's a lot here working. Like, everything in this room is working except one thing. There's an elephant in the room.
And it's the biggest elephant.
There's nothing wrong with recasting.
Not at all.
It doesn't break my... Do you know what? Recasting has the unfortunate speed hump of, it might take people a little bit longer to come around to it. But why is it okay to recast Harrison Ford, but not Mark Hamill? And I just don't understand it.
You saying that? Oh, because I was about to say something, and I'm like, oh, but you know what? We've just got a young and an old.
They can do it in a way that it connects, but it's just that this is the Luke actor for this part.
And I think they've got a really bad situation now, because one of my friends messaged me, you can't get too worried about it. It's just this scene. They'll recast for the next season, or his show already. And I'm like, okay, well, if they do that, though, then they have to CGI him into these scenes.
But you know what? I'm perfectly cool with them doing that.
And then, this will be one of my favorite things. But at this point, I was thinking about this, and I'm like, how can I actually explain how exciting and disappointed I am? It's like, this reminds me of, like, in Game of Thrones, so many scenes where they're building and building, like 10-minute scenes, like when they're Sept and Cersei, and you're building and building and building, and the excitement and the excitement and the excitement, but you're getting to a reveal. And in Game of Thrones, it was often a big explosion or a death, but it's just like, if you build to those bits, and then everyone at the Red Wedding just got away, and you're like, oh. And this was that. It's like, it's building and building, and there's just so much teasing about, like, because you don't see him for ages, but then there's the hallway bit, and I'm like, oh, they're hiding his face. So what have you done? Have you recast? Or are you hiding his face because you've made a monstrosity?
I was hoping they were just holding the reveal of the actor, you know, just so they could have a scene, you know, and I was just clinging to that hope until the hood come off.
And so one thing I've been thinking as well is, yeah, you recast, you're in a bit of strife for a little bit, because everyone's like, oh, I don't know. The trailers for Han Solo actually got me on board, but by the time the movie came out, I was like, I've seen that hair all the time. He is Han Solo at this point.
And I went back and watched a couple of movies Alden Ehrenreich was in, and he was in one that I really liked him in, a Coen Brothers film.
Oh, I haven't seen
the
that.
name escapes.
Hail Caesar?
Yes. Yeah, and I really enjoyed him. He's just in, like, I think it's segments, that movie.
Right, okay.
Kind of like Ballad of Buster Scruggs, you know. Another great one. Everything Coen Brothers is excellent. I mean. But yeah, I watched him in that role, and it was kind of like he was playing a cowboy character, but an actor in different roles, and I don't know, I just like really jived with him right off the bat. That they weren't actually able to capture that as well in the actual Han Solo movie. Like, they make you really like him in the Coen Brothers film. Yeah. The Coen Brothers are really good at that, and like drawing that potential out of people. And I think that was a big hurdle with the two guys who were originally directing it, is that they're doing lots of improv, and he's not the guy you get for that. Yeah. You get a comedian, or you get someone who's a little bit more well-versed. But one thing that, back to Mandalorian, one thing that dawned on me as soon as Luke arrived and started chopping through the robots, I was like, oh, they just made them robots because he can't kill 40 people. That's why they're robots.
That's why they're robots.
Oh, and I was like, okay. And then he just tore through them like the Jedi do with droids.
I have something to say about the droids as well. I'm still on Skywalker with Sebastian Stan. Look, I mean, that's what everyone wants to cast him. There's been posts and stuff. If you just say you're going to cast him, or whoever it's going to be, but we'll just pick him. The best way to like get everyone on board for a while is to have Luke. You've hidden him. You were revealed Ahsoka and everyone to anyone who like is interested in that stuff, but you hid him. You could have revealed him. He rocks up and then he reveals his face. And instead of me being like, oh, I'm disconnected, there's an emotional scene where new Luke Skywalker talks to Grogu and then R2, and they wouldn't have to have shots of R2-D2 without Luke because they're like, we can't show Luke in every shot because it looks terrible. We can't. Why didn't they? When I rewatched this episode, there's a shot that's beautiful. The ship is coming through, and there's these big things and pillars of smoke coming out. And it's a gorgeous shot, and I'm just like, whoever.
And then right after that shot, which is beautiful, another beautiful just wide shot of the ship landing, and then them getting out, but it just holds on the wide. And I was like, ooh, normally they cut in, show them walking off, but just holding on this frame and letting the ship land and the thing open and the two Mandalorian figures walk out and then they cut and then now we're in the bar and then I realize again,
what's happening?
The show is at this point in time the Mandalorian and Boba Fett traveling around with each other, walking into bars, and then there's two more but anyway, back, yeah.
Us just saying this, I'm like, actually don't cut these shots. They're amazing. But my issue just rewatching was, who the fuck is animating these shots? Get them over to the Luke Skywalker computer. Get them over there. What is happening?
They're very good at doing textures and things that aren't organic. And
I know it's a different thing.
As soon as you have to do a face, as soon as you have to, you really have like a high bar to set. It's not just like rendering graphics in Unreal Engine and then like projecting it onto their LED screen, which they're really good at doing. Like, this is just a completely different, and honestly, ILM and, you know, like the visual effects department that work on Lucasfilm stuff, they're actually the best at this technology. Yeah. So it's surprising. It might just be a constraint of this is a TV show at the end of the day. They have a much smaller window of production than a movie does to finish things like this.
Yeah, but I think, I just think it's crazy to me though, because there's no way that they're going like, well, you know what? Luke Skywalker speculation for what he's going to do after, for the speculation video. Him being in it though, do you like that he actually came into it and took Baby Grogu away and ended the arc of the show almost?
I don't know.
The show's over now. I'm like, oh, I'm so sad. But stop looking. Oh.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess I just, you know, it just took me out so much that it became hard to really like even think about the prospects. But the scene right after with Grogu and Din and him taking the helmet off.
Dude,
amazing. Really amazing.
I think I've been a little harsh on Pedro Pascal. But
he didn't do anything anywhere else as much as he did here.
For sure. Yeah. But just in terms of like, to take me from being so fucking disappointed and just confused and like kind of like off-put, like I felt like disgusted at just looking at him. And then being like, I'm actually crying. Like, are they actually ending the show? Is this over? Like, we'll get into all that later. But it's like, I was so shocked because when he came and started speaking, I kind of wasn't processing what he's saying. So I was so like, oh, this is all wrong now. Like, what is happening? Oh, I can't believe they did this. But then I'm like, oh shit, he's going. And Baby Grogu, like, he's like, no, he wants to go on. Actually, the best Luke stuff was not him doing anything. It was Baby Yoda touching the screen and me being like, Baby Yoda like knows he's the dude, and that's awesome. And then the opposite of that, when Moff Gideon's like, oh fuck, not Luke Skywalker from all those movies, no! And his face, he's acting the shit out of it. I love seeing like, it reminded me of Littlefinger at the end of his run, where he's just like, he's powerful, but then suddenly he's this, and then he's cowardly, but then he's kind of scheming and clever, and just everything in like 10 minutes, which I really loved. But yeah, oh my lord, he acted the hell out of that scene, and it makes it really work. But I kind of fundamentally disagree with that happening. I just don't want to see another season if they're not together. So I just want the next season to immediately be like, it's been 5 years later, I overtook Mandalore, I already did that, the sword's still mine though.
Don't you want a bit of that for a while?
A two-parter. But honestly, I think this maybe should say for when we speculate, but because they've announced so many shows, I am seriously so concerned that all these side characters are all being spun off. Like Moff Gideon to me feels like he's being spun off with Cara Dune. Because there's a new Rangers of the New Republic or whatever. She's one of those Rangers. She'll be in that, and taking him into that gives them something. Whereas this Mandalorian still has Din Djarin, and then other characters. It's like, at the end. So post-credit scene, the most Marvel thing to ever happen is that Star Wars announcement. And then this episode had a post-credit scene where I didn't even see it. I saw an image later. And everyone was like,
what? Yeah?
Oh, dude, I paused it immediately and was like, I am not... Yeah, I was pretty, shocked by the Luke thing. I was like, because I'd had spoiled, I was like, I almost had, maybe even higher expectations from, he's going to be in it, so it's going to be the best thing ever. Or he's not going to be in it. It's just going to be that one shot I saw of the smoke and then he's there. It's the coolest looking shot you'll ever see. Anyway, Book of Boba Fett. I kind of hated how they kind of kept putting Boba Fett in the ship. They're like, Boba Fett, be on the ship. And then he just shoots off. I'm like, is he not going to come back? And I would have much preferred him take out all the droids in the ship. So first scene, well, not the first one, the second scene, but right at the start and then right at the end, I think kind of standout scenes. And I don't know if it's just the actor playing him and his voice, but literally them all talking about his voice in that first scene and her being like, it's you, the shitty Mandalorian, it's you, Boba Fett. And he's just like, oh, get out of here. And I don't know, I just thought all that vibe of them hearing his voice over all the Clone Wars stuff. And I was suddenly like...
I like the little back and forth about being a sidekick. Oh, I didn't realize the sidekick could talk. And then he essentially says oh, the kettle is calling the pot black. But he says just Star Wars version of it.
Stuff, yeah.
The fliggity flam is calling the whatever the blah this. And then they fight. And yeah.
I thought it was so awesome. Just seeing them do the little things, and then you got that little bit of the dun, 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 kind of techno-y stuff they had from episode 3 when they appeared. And then his kind of more just mixing those music real quickly as they fight, having them both team up and her being just fuck this shit, And then she hypes for season 3 where she's like, well, let's all reclaim Mandalore after we finish this subplot. Plot. And Mando's like, you son of a bitch. Say that. But all of that stuff, I thought was actually it was them just doing the thing where they're just getting back the team together like they did last season. But it really worked for me. And I think out of all the characters, I'm glad they didn't just go and get everyone. I would have loved Timothy Olyphant to be in it, but he doesn't need to be. And I don't think Ahsoka needs to be. Also couldn't be, because then there'd be 2 people that could have done what Luke did. Also, I don't want to harp on it, but Luke didn't need to rock up. Why were they all scared? Din Djarin, you're fucking immortal. Your armor is impossible to kill, and you've got one thing that Luke was just like, it was spectacular. But Din Djarin could have just gone through and killed them all as they're all shooting.
But when he had his gun out at the end, I was like, what are you doing, man?
Yeah. Because they don't want you to have him stand there being like, oh, I can actually join the fight. He just watches him do it, even though, I think having Luke go one way didn't go the other way.
You just carve him up.
But also, that's maybe just because I'm it's just so weird to me that it is such a great moment, but I'm like, didn't really save him in a way. It's Luke saved him. Whereas I wanted him to save Grogu. I'm particularly, for instance, I think the best part of the episode is the Moff Gideon fight. Holy shit, for a 78-year-old man or whatever, he moves quicker than I'll ever move. Just so aggressive, so intense. And he tricked me, because he's such a great actor. He totally tricked me, where he's like, I don't really care. I've got the blood, which I thought was super interesting. It's maybe he's got enough blood. Who knows? And then he's just actually, no, we're going to fight. And I'm I'd rather they fought. But as soon as that, smashing the walls as he comes out, very brief, but I thought that was probably some of my favorite action in the whole thing. Yeah. What did you think about that fight?
Same. I liked it. It was simple, and it's you could tell he's not a Force user.
Yeah.
Although there was a point when he got disarmed, and I was like, if he's going to be a Force user, this is the time. Oh. And there's he gets the lightsaber knocked out, and I'm like, and he looks at it, and there's a shot. He's got the spear, and I'm like, nah. And they don't do it, obviously. But I like that he's using it like a club, and he's just hammering at him and bouncing off the Beskar, and it's kind of heating the spear up too.
That was so
I'm
cool.
like, ooh, would it cut it? What if you just held it there for ages? Is it going to melt through? I guess not. They said it wouldn't. But
it's heating up. So eventually, if you do that for hours, because that light, they don't turn off, do they?
I wouldn't think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's some stuff, yeah, they do slow, like pushing through some stuff. So I guess it might just take some time. I think that's a moment, you know, like maybe even if, I don't know though. They've kind of, like when she says it, she's like, it cuts through anything. She's like, not anything, not Beskar. And it's like, stop pointing out how impossibly OP he is. Because then it makes scenes where he gets rescued, like, how useless is he with immortal armor? He can't win. And no, I like that actually. I really like that he can't do everything. And I love that fight because it was like, yeah, one of my things when I thought Ahsoka was going to do it was like, it's going to be the other fight again where I'm like, just use the Force, just kill him right now. Whereas these two guys and they're just kind of battling over it.
I guess I would have liked Luke Skywalker. Maybe the biggest thing missing here is that he's not a character. He's just a prop that they've used and designed and thrown in, and it just, yeah, that disconnect for me. Like, Ahsoka got to be a character in this show and didn't get a huge amount to do, but got more than Luke. And Luke is a character Luke is a character I'm actually interested in, and I would like to watch him and Din be together and bounce off each other and see what comes of that. But it seems like there's just such, almost like too much reverence for this character to the point where they won't let it be a character now. It's like this thing. It's like, it's almost the same kind of deal with Darth Vader in Rogue One. Yeah. Like the great thing about the original trilogy and kind of what they did really well in the sequel trilogy to a point is that it's an ensemble piece, and it's like there are 4 main characters. You know, in the original trilogy, it's really about like Luke, Han, Leia, and Darth Vader. Like, he's a main character in the trilogy, and we cut back to just scenes of him on the bridge doing the thing. Like, and then in the broader context of the story, he's just a main character in this story. When you watch it like that, like in Empire, he consumes a substantial portion of the runtime. He is a main character. Yeah. Why can't they let him be a main character in Rogue One? Why do you have to hide him away and build him up and creep him out and just tease and just, you know, that does not make an interesting and compelling story for me, because it feels like you're just wearing, like Red Letter Media say, it's like wearing a Halloween costume. You know, it's like, that's what Darth Vader is now. It's just a Halloween costume Disney can put on. And that's like the saving grace of a movie that's like so barren and hollow and kind of void of emotion in so many weird ways.
Didn't they just put him in though? Like they had the movie, then they went, fuck, we should just put Darth Vader
he was in scenes of it,
right.
But the fight at the end was a reshoot.
Yeah, so he was barely in it, because you're just saying that, I'm like, that was probably my biggest issue.
But it doesn't matter
if he was just the main character of that movie.
Exactly. Why
hunting them all down?
Why can't he? Yeah, like they're ensemble movies, and that's what I like about the sequel trilogy too. Is that, like, you know, Kylo Ren is like a main character in all 3 movies, and we're following him as much as we're following Rey. They feel like dual protagonists. You know, that's especially what Rian Johnson said he was going for in his movie. Like, neither of them and both of them are the protagonist, and that's the tension of the movie. Yeah. And their communication and kind of bond building together. And that's what I want from my characters. That's what I want from Luke Skywalker. I like the lightsaber action, fun, fan servicey stuff. That's all fine. But then I would like a scene where, you know what? You can have a conversation on this ship now. You don't have to rush right off. You killed all the bad guys. You can breathe now. We can have a scene. But they don't want to have a scene because he's not a character. He's a CGI puppet. I could see Jon Favreau just off to the side. Like, yes. Yeah, like, I don't know. I don't like it. No. The puppet in the show is more emotive. The fucking actual puppet.
Yeah, I think that's the thing that really, like, got to me. It was like seeing Luke and R2 rock up. And to me, it was 2 monster CGI creations kidnapping an actual baby. From me, Din Djarin. Because I am the man. You know, just because I'm so into him, and just seeing that happen, I was just like,
R2 wasn't CG though.
No, sure.
Is that what you're saying?
Maybe. No, sorry. But the whole thing about it, I was like, no, actually, R2 looked great. Everything looked great except for Luke. But Luke looks so bad. It's just, there's a bit where R2 rocks up and he like smiles to like Mando. And Mando's like smiles back. It's just, I just don't understand how you didn't see that and go, we actually have to stop production, hold off this until Christmas, and like recast and put him in. Because it's so, but then again, I've seen so many reactions where I'm like, no one cares. And I don't know if I would have cared if I didn't know he was going to rock up, and he rocks up. Because it is crazy. And that song, I've listened to that about 12 times on the drive here from work. It's spectacular. The way the guitars are like sliding in and out. The opera's kind of, and it's like kind of mysterious and a bit like, I don't know, spooky. And until it's kind of like triumphant where you see the glove and it's like, you know who this cunt is now. And it's pretty great music. I still like Boba Fett's bit better. I also love how this show is just like, let's just get straight to it. Like it starts and 2 ships, shoot. And it just goes straight in and it's that guy and he's like, I don't know. I was like, why do I want to mention that scene? That guy who's like, you killed billions of people on the Death Stars. And it's like, yeah, you're all cunts, but I actually like that, well, if you're on that side though, they're terrorists. And he's like, you're a terrorist. And she shoots him in the face. Like a terrorist would. It's so
like
good.
Singes the other guy's ear.
He's like, ow.
He spends the rest of the episode with his ear like burnt.
Oh, wait, really? I didn't notice that. Oh, that's awesome. I was just too excited at that point because I was just like, oh, last Mando epi, like, what's going to happen?
How did you feel about the Bo-Katan, like mocking Mando for being a religious zealot, but then won't take the sword because
she's a religious zealot?
Yeah. I guess actually, we're all hypocrites in a way.
I like that because she just doesn't like his type of whatever. Whereas she's like, well, my Mandalorian style is the way. Like, this is the way. And he's like, no, this is the way. She's like, that's not the way. And I think that's very classic, that type of person. One little fun thing, I don't know if you know, but at the end of Rebels, when she gets the Darksaber, it's just bloody given to her by Sabine. She's just like, have the Darksaber. And she's like, thank you very much. I will.
Oh, God. Well,
so now there's I don't know if that's for a Bo-Katan series for them to explain, or if it's meant to be like, she did that, and then they're all like, boo, off camera, like it just cuts. And she's like, I did it. And maybe it cuts and they're all like, boo, we don't like that.
So to all the people on Reddit who are speculating that Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau are secret geniuses that have been orchestrating a ginormous Star Wars plot with all of these characters for all of these years, that's probably not true, and they're just kind of telling stories as they go.
Yeah, they're just doing whatever.
Yeah,
definitely. But it's just like, I got all these characters. I forgot to end their arcs.
So generally,
we could use them or whatever.
Generally, I haven't been paying attention to what the discussion has been online about Mandalorian until after we record our episode. But because we're a little bit late, just given the time of year being Christmas.
Merry Christmas! Fuck Christmas.
Yeah, we haven't had quite as much time. So apologies for these last 2 episodes being out a bit late. But so I was able to digest kind of the online conversation around this episode. It seemed to be far more positive than negative. And people really like hailing Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau as being like the people who have saved Star Wars. And in a lot of ways that they have created some of the most engaging Star Wars content that we've had since Disney have taken it over. And you can't rob them of that fact. But this was not the episode, I would say, that I got that feeling more than others.
The thing I think it is just the Rise of Skywalker is just real bad. That's all it is. And then a lot of people really didn't like Last Jedi and didn't like specifically the Luke stuff, which I think is easily the strongest stuff. Mm-hmm. And I understand where they're like, why is he a coward? He wasn't always a coward. I don't want to get into it. I really like that thing. But if you just hate all of that, you've hated Luke forever. And now Luke just rocks up, kills all the droids where you get all your sweet killing and lightsabering, but he's not hurting anyone, and he saves the best 2 Star Wars characters. And I'm saying it because when they split up and I realized I might not just have them biting up for season 3, I was generally like, fuck season 3. I'm so disappointed. Fuck Luke coming and stealing my show. Because Mandalorian and Baby Yoda are so good because they've carved the iconography, all the looks and everything, but they're actual awesome characters. And I just love the idea. Someone just did it in some like Twitter or some shit, and it was like, it's just an adoptive father trying to get this baby into a good preschool, a good magic preschool. I'm like, and he doesn't care about Star Wars, and all these Star Wars characters keep coming. And I was just suddenly realized, like, Bo-Katan rocks up, and he's not like, oh my god, it's Bo-Katan from the thing, and you know how they do, where they're like, it's you, Han Solo, I can't believe it's you, and they were like, he's just like, oh, who are you? Oh, okay, you know, and I just suddenly realized how much I love this stuff, and I really would have absolutely loved. If they're going to do this, as you said, should have been a 10-minute sequence of action and then a 10-minute scene of them sitting down and talking. Like, there are so many moments in this where I'm like, this is almost like Game of Thrones. And then I realized, you know what it's missing? The 20 minutes per episode where they fucking talk. And we get 10 minutes of, Kieran and Jamie sitting there for 10 minutes talking about life. And then there's the Oberon action scene at the end with the head squat. It's the perfect 20 minutes. This should have been that. 10 minutes of amazing, sweet action. You build up to all this stuff. And then they sit and you talk and then the show ends or whatever. I don't know. It's such a misstep to me. And you know what it is? Every time I think this show isn't doing enough talking and it's so quick and straight to it because they've got nothing to say. And it makes me angry. And this is actually probably some of my favorite Star Wars. These two characters, I love them, but it's a 5-hour story for each thing. And all of that is them. All the stuff I like is them. The interplay, like my favorite moment of the show is probably him laughing at Grogu. He says Grogu. Grogu looks at him and he laughs and he gets excited. But yeah, it's so good when it's just doing that and then he just keeps running to stuff. I don't know. I wanted him to talk with Luke and then at the end Luke's like, fuck, Ahsoka is right. And then, I don't know, he talks to baby Grogu in their minds or whatever, and then he just leaves. And then we get, I don't know, whatever. It was a really cool shot when Boba Fett ship right at the start comes up, like right at the start of the ship, and he's phased it, and then the Boba Fett ship comes up. And it just looked like a big face. Like, it just looked like the helmet coming up, and I just imagined big, giant Boba Fett. And I just thought that like, just the way it was shot. When it ended, I was just so deflated. I was like, halfway through the episode, or maybe when Luke was doing stuff, I'm like, it's going to come up, it's going to say directed by George Lucas. They're going to...
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I don't think they would actually let him direct it, but
they would.
But just in terms of my mind, like, I don't know, when it said Rodriguez, I was like, him.
No, Peyton Reed.
No, sorry, but just with the Boba Fett episode, I was so excited, and I was so like, they're doing so much more this episode than I thought they'd done. Then I saw his name and I went, it's just that little spice of life you need in there. At least for me. Peyton Reed, I'm like, I don't know. I think this was easily his best thing he's done. But like still, I don't know, man. There's something about the action, just like hiding his face. Like there's something about it that I love, but I'm also like... What do you think about the action for the rest of the episode?
Pretty much in line with what we've seen from the show so far. Like nothing
different.
But yeah, like I said, I actually like the one-on-one Dark Trooper Mando tiny little fight where he's punching the helmet, and you really...
Two Terminators almost.
For a moment, you really feel that tension that he's going to crack through it, but he just caves it into the wall, and there's no damage done.
There was a split second where I'm like, oh, you're actually going to make a robot that's stronger than Beskar. Okay.
But they didn't.
Which I think kind of makes sense, because that would be like, I'd be like, don't make these robots the thing that can... But I don't know if that's what you're going to... But I thought it was really interesting how they were like, we're going to make it the hardest fight, which I really didn't think was going to happen. And the way he's punching and stuff, and it's very Terminator-y. I like that. And then he shoots them all out the window. I'm like, that's super disappointing. I want to see them all die. And then when they fly back in, I was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
They're not human. They could... I don't know. I love that. I just think, even though I was disappointed, just to have them come back, like it's so quick, but I don't know. I really like a lot of this stuff. Talking to my brother, he really hated the music for the robots, but I really liked it. And I really liked how it really didn't vibe with Luke Skywalker's music when he came in and they were clashing in the music. And I really liked Ludwig's work this epi.
It was a little dubsteppy, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was like...
Yeah.
I really liked, there was at one point when like, which I think is probably the best directing choice or whatever you call it, I don't know. But it's just like all the action stuff's happening, it gets in the elevator and it's like close-ups of people's faces, dramatic tension, building, and then just before the elevator opens, one of the robots just goes, he just does this little thing, and then, I don't know, I'm just primed. I don't know, something about that, I was like, I like that.
I actually prefer the Mandalorian new Imperial music to the new robot stuff, because they've been playing that every time they showed the robots. I kind of would have just preferred it here, because we didn't really get that in this episode.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Fair
I think
enough.
I like that more.
I did actually forget we'd seen them before, because to me, when the music kicked in was when they revealed that they had to be charged up. I was like, a ticking time bomb. I really liked that, because we're going to get to a point where they're like, we stopped them, and they're going to be like, oh no, we didn't, which is essentially what we got.
Yeah, and it ties in with the Empire being kind of, they've been beaten down by the New Republic, and their ships are operating at much less capacity than they were in the prime of the Empire, and they got to power shit down because they don't have a lot of fuel, and it really did feel like when Bo-Katan is explaining what's going on in this ship, and then we get to the end of the episode and see the state that Moff Gideon is in, it kind of fits perfectly with this, like, he's putting on a front. He's just putting on a front, and the Empire's very hollow and sparse, and that's what we've seen a lot of in The Mandalorian. They will, when they've got the upper hand, make you feel like they're the Empire that you know from the original trilogy, but when you actually back them into a corner, they're not anymore, you know?
And I think that for the first time this epi, I really was like, oh, they've got Gus for a reason because they're doing this epi. Like, his face when he loses the sword, I was like, oh, he's just a dude. And he's got no power. And then he's like, I don't know, the way he's like, oh, Bo-Katan can't take the sword now. Look how tricky I was. I'm like, who is this? This was not the guy.
Yeah, he turns into Dr. Smith from Lost in Space. That's exactly what Dr. Smith. He's like a conniving, scheming villain.
It really reminded me
and a coward.
It really reminded me of Littlefinger. I'm like, he's more of a Littlefinger where he poses as a striking figure. And I was really impressed by the sword play. But once he lost the sword and was like, oh, I'm going to die.
Well, he could have been a figure that like, because we hadn't seen him push to that limit, that he'll be like, no, I'm going to die before I give up what I believe in. But what we learn is he really doesn't believe in it.
Yeah.
And he'll squirrel his way out of it. Like, he'll do whatever he's got to do. And yeah, that's interesting. But it did, this episode made me realize, oh, maybe he's not the big overarching villain I thought he was.
So one thing I want to say, when all the action kicks off with all the Mandalorians, like the lady shooter team, there was like 6 too many times where like all of them, it wasn't just like, at first it was the sniper lady, but then just all of them were doing it. They're just, you've got all these guns, and then they just kept punching people. She'd be like, a guy would be like right there, and he's got like nowhere near his weapon, and she just goes, like hits him like 6 times, then shoots him, then kicks a guy, shoots him in the face. There was just so many times. At one point she like flings the thing and then kicks him, and I'm like, this is all awesome. But I'm just like, you just need to shoot all these guys. Like, you're all being way too fancy for me. And I don't know, I think, because you did it 3 times, and then there's just like I don't know. I just thought that was a really funny kind of choice. Because then later on in the episode, when Luke's fighting everyone, I couldn't help but feel like if these droids were good droids, or people with machine guns, he'd be fucking dead. Because he opens up and they're like, and he just cuts through them and stuff. But they're not really shooting at him. If I was a droid, or I don't know, like a level 3 droid, I'd have a machine gun. And I'd be like, bam, 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 bam. And there'd be 12 of us, all from different angles, doing a thing. I'd love to see him try and stop that kind of battle. Like, imagine if he had to like, I don't know. But that's crazy stuff. And obviously I'm thinking crazy, but you know what? The sky's the limit.
Sure, but I also don't like what I think the prequel Clone Wars stuff does.
For sure, I'm going too crazy there, but I just mean like, I don't know, it's like...
I like Jedi when they're just samurai, and it's simple, and it's kind of, like, I liked it. I would have liked it more if there was maybe... And this goes more to...
3 droids with swords, sorry.
No, not even that. More to a point that I think they need to work on the drastic power imbalance for the heroes and villains, and it was kind of a problem with the sequel trilogy where like the bad guys are just always losing, so they're never a threat.
Yeah.
You know, and that's kind of the case in The Mandalorian. Is like we're dealing with like the most powerful people, it seems like, in the Star Wars universe that can kind of just steamroll into anywhere and plow through unscathed. And I think that they need to work a little bit on the beats in the episode where we really feel, and they, in their defense, they don't do it with any of the female characters running through the ship, but they do it with the Mandalorian and the one-on-one fight.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, and then at the end that tension works, and then Luke arrives and relieves that tension. So they do kind of earn that little bit there, and it is in this episode, but it's not in a lot of episodes. And Luke also doesn't have to face that same thing, but he's not really a character. He's just there to
kill a bunch of droids and look sweet.
Yeah, exactly. To do the little, you know, Jedi showreel, and then to not really say much, unfortunately. And
because he looked terrible and they couldn't.
Yeah.
Maybe there was a scene and then they just did it and went, oh, cut all of it. Just the 3 lines he needs to say. Can I have a Grogu? He wants to come with me. Bye-bye. Oh, and here's an R2-D2. It makes no sense to me that they didn't want to like do like a...
Well, it's the same reason that JJ never used Luke Skywalker, because I think...
Didn't know what to do?
No, I think that they are crippled by fear of their reverence for this character. I think they're too close. I think maybe they're too big a fan. Like, I think they need to...
You need more of like halfway in between Orion and then if you wanted to, the heroic...
Well, Ryan Johnson was at least willing to roll the dice and like do something.
Yeah. No,
like to like think about the character, given the position he was put in by another filmmaker, and the position that he would have to hand...
He'd run away on a hill already, yeah.
And the position that he would have to hand it to another filmmaker after that. I think he wove in a pretty decent story for this character. And really the end of this character's story is what I think he was tasked with. It's like, you know, this is the Han Solo movie, this is the Luke movie, the next one's the Leia. I think that I would really just like to see people come into the show and be like, I don't really care about Star Wars, I just want to make good content. That might be nice for a while, because maybe these people being so overly attached to the material and just, too much reverence and too much fear of actually wanting to push the boundary, because when you can just slap the iconography over the top, you don't actually have to work out how to make the scene good.
Because Luke's there, oh my god, R2's there now, they're all touching Grogu.
Yeah, and I've already kind of had and been let down by that feeling already, and you know, like, I don't know.
I actually can't understand how anybody that hated what they did with Luke liked this, because it's worse. It's worse than anything they've done with any character. I don't understand how people can look at it. I've seen so many things where people have been like, I've got chills, and I see the face, I'm like, I want to smash it, I want it to die. To me, it's so bad. It's just so like... I reckon if it looked incredible, I would have just been like, I swear to God, there's a scene in Rise of Skywalker where Luke takes his helmet off in a flashback, and it looks incredible. Like, I'm certain that's a thing that happened. I haven't gone back to check, but I'm sure it looked great. Like, good enough. I'm still going to be like, oh, it's CGI, that's weird. But this is like, the show's like my favorite looking show. Maybe almost as much as Thrones, like really. And this is just, how did they let this slip?
Let's actually talk about why it's bad, because I think there's two main reasons that are stopping this effect from working. Okay. Everyone in that room has a catchlight in their eye, except the CGI face with the CGI eyes. They look like, and it's funny because I was at my, with my family for our Christmas get-together, and then at the end of the night, a movie came on, and it was Polar Express. Another terribly, like, horrific CGI face thing.
This beforehand.
This was the...
It's a harbinger. It was warning you.
It might have been the same day. Yeah, because it came out Friday.
That's the only thing I kept thinking. Yeah. It's that movie.
Well, I didn't even make the connection until, I think, yesterday when I came home and I was talking to someone about it, and I said, you know, I saw the Polar Express and it was on TV, and I was reminded of all the things that don't work about that movie because they didn't do these little things you need to do. And you know, you can not put a catchlight in someone's eyes when you want them to be villainous and look dark and mysterious, and you know, that's often done in movies. That's a very easy trick, you know, just moving the light in the right position so it's not catching, and you don't get that little twinkle, that little sparkle in the eye. And it just is strange to me that they didn't notice that it was kind of lacking that little... You need shine on the eye. Like Baby Yoda, his eye's shiny and it reflects, and it gives kind of a strange texture. Even though there is no texture, there is now, because of how the light's bouncing off it. And you really need to do hard work if you're going to do a CGI face to make sure those little details, like a catchlight. And then the other big thing that really doesn't work for me is the way that they've shaded the side of his face. Okay. Because it doesn't match the way anyone else is shaded and lit in the room. And that's really what it's doing, is you're cutting from one character to another character, and then we're going back to Luke and then to other people. And it's further cementing the fact that this one person is standing out, because the shading around the edge of his face has not been done with the mindset. I don't even know if they got like the lighting imagery for the room to get the way the light falls properly like they normally do with these things. It just looks like they've put a gradient shaded filter on the side of his face, and it's not effective. And then the third thing, which is always a problem for me, and I don't think they ever really get this right, is just the speaking. That's when it really, because sometimes when it's still, it kind of works, and you're like, oh, if his mouth didn't move.
If he had taken his hood off in the wide and it had cut, I would have been like, wow.
I'm almost at the point now where I think if you're going to CGI someone's face, if you could just get a good mouth double and CGI the rest, you might actually be onto something with blending both the practical and visual. If you got someone whose mouth was similar enough to Luke's and the chin was similar enough, and that way the movement of the mouth is real and practical and lit properly, and then you've got the lighting reference, and then you're blending the CGI element over the top. I don't know enough about visual effects to know if it would work, but that's really the big thing always poking out. Like when Leia says hope, it doesn't move right.
So I've suddenly come onto something where I'm like, because you're just saying all this stuff, and I'm like, no, like just recast him. They didn't.
Of course.
They didn't make the Mountain every time they had to recast him a CGI version of that first guy. They recast him like 7 times.
Because there's no reverence for that character. They don't care. No one cares. So that's
exactly, yeah. But
there's
then
so much reverence for Princess Leia and Luke Skywalker, but apparently not for Han Solo.
Which is just insane. But it's like, to me, if they've taken away Grogu like this, my biggest issue is like, well, if you're doing CGI Luke, then he's not in, like, the first half of Mandalorian Season 3 isn't Luke and Grogu chaining while we take Mandalore and then they'll succeed. It's like, no, we can't have him for an episode train Grogu. They can't do it like that.
Well, that's not the show. The show is The Mandalorian, so I don't,
For sure, but then to me, I'm like, well, then Luke shouldn't have taken Grogu. I don't understand why they feel the need to, like, end it. I think the camaraderie of, like, the lone wolf with his lone cub, like...
Well, I said this weeks ago, and I've said it consistently every week, and I think the way the plot, outside of the execution, the way the plot goes is, I was perfectly fine. When he took Grogu, I was like, all right, this guy is a Jedi. He wants to rebuild the Jedi.
For sure,
and he's just been reached out to by a remnant of the Jedi Order who was there. You know, like, of course he's going to take him. And...
No mention about he's only met, like, 5 Jedi and 2 of them are Yodas. Like, no, like, there's just so much he could have said.
Why would he say that?
I don't know. He should have just said some stuff. Had some... I don't know. I just think it was all so, like...
I kind of feel like it would have been better to have Ahsoka in the situation so that there was the natural room for dialogue, because he didn't even say what his name was, and it didn't even not work that he didn't do that. Like, it kind of fit. Like, he's like, "Are you a Jedi?" Yeah, and he's like, it's kind of all he needed at that point.
And he's seen, like, and I think that he saw, because there's a beautiful moment where it's like, I think he saw what Grogu's sensing in Luke, and because he gets that, and then he walks over, he's like, open the door, and they're like, no, he's like, no, Grogu trusts this Jedi. I now trust this Jedi. Yeah. This Jedi wants to take Grogu. This is happening. No, I don't know. I think it really does work. And I feel like
we're just the execution. The plot. The plot works. And you know what? Sometimes, like, separation builds and can make things even more effective when they come back. And I think that maybe some time away from Baby Yoda and some breathing room and some time for Din to develop and actually, like, you know, you can do some interesting plot. Like, he could be really depressed for a while. Like, I think they might do something like that. Like,
that would,
you know,
that would be awesome. I'm already back on board.
You can do some interesting...
He's just missing Grogu, and I'm like, so am I, bro.
And, you know, and then we get to episode 6 and we see Grogu again. You don't get to have that moment if you don't have the separation.
I just imagine seeing him again and be like, oh my God.
Yeah.
It's not even... Yeah.
As much as I am...
It made me so sad when he left. I'm like, I can't... Because to me, that was the end of the show, I think. That's what I think I've had to come to terms with. I thought getting him to a Jedi would be the end of the show, or there'd be a moment where he meets the Jedi and they'd be like, no, you're the papa. And I don't know. To me, I'm like, it felt like the end of the show, especially because they've announced 3 other shows from all the characters in the show, and Boba Fett's being spun off into his own show.
How do you feel about Boba Fett's show?
I think that because the title is Book of Boba Fett, and I'm not sure if this is my idea or 1,000 people have read or whatever, but it should be chapters, as in like each episode is just like chuck him in the Sarlacc pit and have that psychological mind game with the thing from the books or whatever. Have one from when and get the kid, do the kid. Have one where he's like with Darth Vader on a mission, bounty hunting. Like just have Darth Vader in the episode. Just have one here, and then you can have this kind of new good guy Boba Fett taken back Jabba's palace and doing all that stuff. But then you can just do stuff, and I think that to me is the most exciting idea ever. Like just do the bounty hunting stuff. And now they didn't to start with Boba Fett, but they got him in straight away and then got him straight off to his own show. And I think all my disappointment for how little he was used in episode 7 and 8, even though every moment he's in is just spectacular. And there is something to be, but I was like, my biggest disappointment with this episode, there wasn't a scene of the Dark Troopers facing off against Boba Fett and Mando. I don't know, in my mind, there was a hallway scene. And I still I wish I had that.
And now, like I said, the realization came that the Dark Troopers were always there to just be chopped up by Luke. I don't know if it's disappointing. It'll be kind of that thing where now when you like rewatch it all, it'll be like, oh, we got to do the tease because there's like a tease and then we see him and then, maybe there's 2 teasers and then we see him and then the final one. But I don't know.
So definitely not your favorite episode. Yeah.
No, not really. I mean, there are things I like about it, and I really was in at so many points, and I really think the big, that emotional beat of him taking the helmet off is like, that's like the closest that's come to a tearjerker for me that, really worked, and it's a man looking at a puppet. A man whose face we almost never see.
Barely seen.
Yeah, and it just works so much, and that is, and I understand why you're saying, it's disappointing that won't be the show anymore, but I think that they've done enough work this season with those other elements that I wouldn't mind, he can hang out with Boba Fett or Bo-Katan or even go and see Raylan Givens again or do whatever. There's so many characters to be involved with now, and this is such a interesting corner and time in the universe that there's so many more things to be mined, and I'm keen for whatever they do, but I would like them to, I don't know, the episodes are engaging, but they're not always like as suspenseful as you want them to be, and there's not enough time given to certain things, and
it's pulpy, quick, fast action. It's always going for that. And that was my favorite thing about the Boba Fett one, but almost every other episode feels a bit like, except for the first episode, because it was a full 50-minute episode, where they did like 20 minutes of stuff, and then there was the episode, and it really got to a big moment at the end with a big crate dragon and a long action set piece. Characters were invested in, different sides, motivations, that had the whole thing, whereas this has been very quick fire, bam, 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 character introduction, shoot, action scene, and move on to the next thing. I think it's done it really well. But I'm hoping that, I think the Ahsoka show and the Obi-Wan show, if they're not written shows, like more, like, all this fun action, but if they don't have, as you're talking about, bigger episodes, chunkier meat, I don't think Mandalorian's ever going to do that with this show, just because, I don't know, I think this has been way too universally praised. And they've already filmed 3 anyway, so it doesn't matter.
Well, apparently no. So what they're doing...
Oh my God!
They're filming the Boba Fett one. So they're filming the Book of Boba Fett, but they wanted to hold the announcement back for that show actually being a thing until the end of this episode, because they didn't want you to know what happened to Boba Fett.
I totally,
Yeah.
It's a fun little thing as well for this show to be like at the end. It is, I don't know. I didn't see it like that.
So they're shooting that. So we're going to get that in the Mandalorian slot next year, and then we probably won't get any Mandalorian next year.
Oh.
Yeah. But we'll get, 8 episodes of the Book of Boba Fett, and Mandalorian Season 3 won't be far behind. Like they said, they're in pre-production for it, heading into it. But they did announce that they'd shooting, but it was obviously just for this other thing that they were keeping secret.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Obi-Wan, though, is, I think, where I'm going to, place all my bets on being the thing that I'm interested in, just because...
Obi-Wan.
Well, and more so, I like that, they've just leaned right into... I mean, Obi-Wan has to be a character. It's about him, and Darth Vader is going to be a character. And I would totally be okay if it's like you know, 60-40 screen time.
Oh.
You know, like just cutting back and forth, and it's like building to this big grudge match, and that's all it is. And then it's over, and like just maybe an episode setting the stage for linking into episode 4.
So someone posed this, and I think this is really interesting, but it, of course, it's just how it's done. Because I think it's some of my favorite stuff in the sequel stuff. What would you like with Obi-Wan and Darth Vader force connecting and actually conversing with each other throughout the series? The way that they do in the sequel series with
that wouldn't
Rey and Kylo.
Yeah, that wouldn't give away their position. It's been written so, you know, Kylo wouldn't figure out they're in Act 2, you know.
Well, yeah, exactly. So
they like, I can only see you, but it's my surround. Like they explain it in the movie.
And then you would have shots of like Obi-Wan like walking through like the Death Star. Just visually, you'd have these two people and you could mix it up. And I was like, they've already done it. Like, I think that's the way to get them. And like, 40-60 is crazy, but that sounds so cool.
But then someone would have to be bridging their minds, as was being done to them by Snoke, which was actually Palpatine.
I mean, if something like that doesn't work, you could just scratch that. It'll be like, I don't know, whatever. Vader's the most powerful bro ever. You could just, I don't know. But like, yeah, I think you're right in terms of that being, I mean, I don't know. I really, like I've said I don't want it without Baby Yoda, but I really do like Mando. Like I don't know. If season 3 is as good as 2, but you get away from like I think Luke was just one too many fan servicey moments. Like, it's just, ship appearing, a thing happening. I'm just like, I liked it when Moff Gideon fought, because I'm like, these characters, and then he fell, and he's, you know, and his interactions were the best bits.
That's exactly what I was going to say, is that if it's just about the fan services, it doesn't work. But, I mean, this show, fundamentally, its concept is like a concept rooted in fan service, because it's Boba Fett and Baby Yoda traveling through the galaxy.
Yeah, like, for sure.
How much more fan service? But that on paper sounds fan servicey, but in the actual execution of it, they've made it good. You know, like
worked on them.
Every time you're bringing a character back in who's been in Star Wars and you're folding him back into a new story, that tension is going to be there between making them an interesting new character or just doing what I would say is the quick and easy route. And
Cameo.
Yeah, and just doing the little fan servicing moment that I think in the short term tends to appeal to people and gets that big internet moment that, you know, will be cut up into GIFs and shared around, and people on Twitter.
Which was how I was able to have it spoiled.
And everyone on Reddit's talking about it and how cool it was, and it looks like the Vader scene from Rogue One and all these things. But, you know, fundamentally, I think the Rogue One Vader scene is just, I mean, it's the same. It's exactly the same, and that's not a compliment in my book.
No,
I would say it's actually executed with a little bit more vision than that scene. I think the actual shots and the way they've actually thought through him moving through the space is more just
Vader or Luke?
Luke. That like just him moving through is more interesting than the way they shot Vader moving through the hallway in Rogue One, which is just essentially shot, reverse shot, shot, reverse shot.
I do think the one thing, though, is that they just kind of went, let's just shoot him like a spooky monster where he's just trying to come at the camera. And they kept it very basic in that way. So I think that kind of almost works. But I feel like before, and I wish I'd said it before in case people were listening, they're like, really, how's that fun? Just turns it off. I was really negative on the fight. I thought some of the stuff was really beautiful. It's a bit where he's spinning and pushing. I thought it was all really, really great. It's just, it's so easy to pick apart stuff once you're just like burnt. And having it spoiled, and then the Luke CGI reveal, it's like, I found it very easy to rewatch it because I watched it a bunch, being like, why don't I love this? And I just kept watching it and being like, the music's so good, this and the shot. But I'm just looking, being like, because when I look at him with the hood on, I'm like, that's not a real man under there. It's a PlayStation 2 character. That's not real. And there's this crazy disconnect. With the Boba Fett reveal, just seeing him in the costume, I was like, this show at its best just looks so good. Like, I just want to hug it. I just want to live in it. I save it up on my big TV, my headphones just at nighttime. Like, I don't know. Just felt like, it's just crazy to me. It doesn't look, I don't know. This show is just all visuals for me. So I think that having that visual, it's like, no good. But you asked me before, the Boba Fett show. I think I'm probably, most excited maybe for that. If it's one.
Oh, really?
If it's... calling it the Book of Boba Fett, it's like, make it just chapters all over the book of Boba Fett's life, and he spans the prequels all the way.
The one thing I'll say is just with the announcement, they did say that it was set in the era of The Mandalorian. So I'm not saying they won't do that, but I don't think it'll be entire episodes. I think it'll be more like how we see flashbacks of Din Djarin, from other... but it's not... I think really the main plot is going to be what they teased, which is he's the new crime lord on Tatooine.
Yeah.
And he's going to build his empire.
Because
there's a power vacuum now.
What did you think about Bib Fortuna being the 73rd character to survive an explosion or fall from a height in Star Wars? And
I mean, that barge explodes very slowly.
For sure,
I guess
but it's just another thing where I'm like, I guess it makes sense to bring him back as second henchman and just have him there. And I think if he wasn't really fat, I probably would have really hated it. But I really liked that touch. I thought the visual looked incredible. Everything in there looked incredible. There's just two pigs walking by. I'm like, that's the best thing I've ever seen in my life.
I guess
Take that, Luke, you monster.
I guess Ming-Na Wen owes Boba Fett like a life debt now.
Yeah,
Is that why she's there? She's like, I guess I'll just hang out with you forever because you saved me.
I guess
like
so,
Jar Jar Binks and Qui-Gon Jinn. Yeah.
Oh yeah. I just think there's so much crazy stuff with Boba Fett's story. Like just in this episode where she's like, "You're a bloody clone. You're a this and that," and then he's like, "Hey, take that back." And I'm just like, as soon as they started saying all these words, I'm like, there's so much material to mine with Boba Fett. He's so cooked. Like it's such a cooked character. There's so much to do.
Well, it just depends. I mean, how they want to explore it. I would be. I mean, if it's about him establishing a new, empire, crime cartel, in Jabba's old palace, and then trying to take over Tatooine, that could be pretty cool. And he's not going to just be confined there. I guess he's going to be able to go and do stuff. And yeah.
Maybe it's better to have the kid stuff in the Clone Wars as flashbacks. Maybe that is better. I don't know. Someone just said because it's called Book of, there'll be chapters like Mando, but each chapter will be like, and it'll be an anthology series covering his whole story. Which I was just, as soon as I heard that, I'm like, oh, that sounds cool.
Yeah. I think I think looking more at who the filmmakers are working on these projects too will be more of an indicator of which ones I'm going to be interested in. Because I know Robert Rodriguez is going to be involved. He's like a co-creator of the Book of Boba Fett with Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni. So I think him directing that episode, which is essentially setting all of those elements up.
Yeah.
And then I don't know, did he direct that little post-credit scene? Maybe.
Yeah, right,
is he just going to be the Boba Fett guy now? Maybe he just loves that character and has all these stories to tell. So that filled me with a little bit more hope, and having Deborah Chow on Obi-Wan, whereas like Ahsoka, Rangers of the New, I don't know who is actually working on these things.
I think it's just Favreau and Filoni for Ahsoka, because I remember seeing a meme and they were like,
no, but their names being on stuff isn't actually a suggestion that they will be heavily involved like they are with Mandalorian. That's just because of the position that they're in the creative department. Like they got in on the top floor, Like they're at the top, so their names are just going to be on everything now. The same way, I don't know, is it Greg Berlanti and some other guy on all the Arrowverse shows?
Right. For sure.
But he's not really show running every show.
Right, yeah.
And
I could be wrong, but I think what I read is that Ahsoka's the show that they're next doing together. Like that's the one they're going to focus on.
But
I could be wrong.
Yeah, no, because they're doing Mandalorian season 3 next. So you know what I mean? Like they. But the Mandalorian.
So the thing that I thought was the most interesting, and it's either going to be the best part or the worst part of the Mandalorian moving forward, is that just like the Flaraverse, which you mentioned just before, Arrow and Flash, they had a season both where they essentially just built up a bunch of characters that all got flung into Legends of Tomorrow. So the first half of season 2 and 3 of those shows was like just setting up characters. When like they all get set up, and then you have 3 shows, and they actually ended up working pretty nicely. Even though it affected the seasons a bit, they're such big long seasons, it doesn't really matter. My fear is that this season, hopefully, I'm going to be wrong. But like when Cara Dune is like, I need to go take Moff Gideon to go do stuff. To me, she was like, I'm off to my Rangers of the New Republic show. And Ahsoka, who wasn't in that episode, but she's like, me and Thrawn, we're off. And I don't want them to be Mandalorian, but she's like, I'm off for my show. And I don't know, maybe it's just the Cara Dune thing where I'm like, I'd much prefer her to come in for 2 or 3 episodes every Mandalorian season than be in another show. with other stuff. I don't want that new Rangers of... I don't want that. And part of me is like, I don't even know if I really want a full Ahsoka show. Maybe in an event series like Obi-Wan. Obi-Wan to me is exciting because it's not like we're doing 12 seasons. It's like they're doing a show, which is essentially them being like, we're doing a movie, but it's going to be 5 to 8 hours long, which is so good. I think I want that for Ahsoka.
But I mean, I kind of like, there's going to be a show about people in X-Wings, and there's going to be a show about a Jedi, and there's going to be a show about a bounty hunter, there's going to be a show about a crime lord. And sometimes they'll kind of...
But they've... Sorry, I was
I'd like
getting
an
to a thing
Empire show too, you know? Like some bad guy... Oh!
They're doing the Sith show, but that's set like 1,000 years in the past.
That's perfect.
That's going to be the best.
I would love...
If that's done even half good.
I just want to see a guy getting mentored on the dark side, you know? Like, just being taught about it and being like, actually going into some depth about it and being like, this is how you achieve power through these means, through manipulation and through, you know, just working through these ideas and watching someone like wield the dark side in a long form manner.
I think that's called the Acolyte or something.
Yeah.
That'll be really exciting. Sorry, the last thing I want to say though is with her saying Thrawn, but all these shows, they have said they're going to be connected, especially Ahsoka, Rangers, and Mandalorian. And
All
they're going to
era.
culminate in an end game. Like they've said that. They didn't say end game, but they said culminate in like a whole thing. And that's what they're going to do, which will be Thrawn.
Did they say that?
Yeah, when they announced these shows, because they announced those first 2 shows together, and they're like, we're going to have, because when they said with the Darth Vader thing, they're like, there'll be a showdown, like the century in the making, which unless they'd said that, I'd be like, they won't meet. They'll just be, I don't know, you'll do mind stuff or whatever. But they said that, so they have to meet now. They said they're going to fight. So with this other thing, they said it's all going to culminate in an end game kind of thing. And I think that's very exciting ideas-wise. I just am like afraid, like, is Jon Favreau Marvel all over this too much? But then I really did enjoy almost every aspect of this season and the way, like, I was pretty iffy on Ahsoka, but like, bloody hell, compared to Luke, at least I can watch that episode. I don't know, like,
because there's a real person.
And when I watched it a few times and I got over the actress and all the things, you know what I actually got? A really interesting, subtle, much older character that I haven't, who isn't even live. She's not animated, so she's going to be less animated and all these things. But I got really emotional with her, like, talking with Grogu, and then her being like, he's from the Jedi Council. Someone saved him, and it's all pretty great stuff. But yeah, because she's a character, she's emoting, and it's all, I can just touch it.
And she has her own motivations going on. Like, that would have been nice to see that Luke's doing stuff, and we know he's doing it, and we know where he's headed, but we don't know specifically where he is, like, 5 years after. How established is it? I wonder,
I would love to know someone, and I imagine no one watching would know anyone, but if they do, I'd love to know, like, if you know someone who's just watched The Mandalorian and know the Star Wars stuff, like, I know you'd never find that, but it's like, what would they think of Ahsoka? And then what would they think of that Luke thing? Like, I'd be really interested to see, like, was there enough there with her? And does it not matter? Like, if it's just taking it to a Jedi, we've already met a Jedi, so we understand the Jedi.
Well, the Ahsoka one works, and I think the Luke one doesn't.
Yeah, I think very much so. But I wonder if that's just because, I don't know. If it had been any other character besides Luke and it had looked that bad, do you think you would have had such a visceral reaction? Just no matter who? Or do you think because it's Luke? Because for me, it's because it's Luke, I'm so shocked that they decided to go this route.
I mean, I don't like any time there's CGI face.
No, I would have hated it anyone, yeah.
But yeah, there is something about it being maybe one of my favorite characters ever, and also kind of lusting after the potential that's promised in the original trilogy that was never realized, and then we jump right to the end of his story, so there's this enormous gap, and we only really got one movie, and we didn't even really get one movie with him. We got like a tease at the end of a movie where he's emoting, and it's funny because the scene at the end of The Force Awakens, when you watch it the first time, when The Force Awakens came out, you read all this stuff and you're like, what could it all mean?
Yeah.
And then when you see it again after you watch The Last Jedi, you're like, oh, I feel the weight of the Jedi Temple being burnt down and Kylo and failing his sister and all this. And then you watch it again after Rise of Skywalker and you're like, oh, he knows she's a Palpatine. And even, you know, like, a single scene has not changed so much for me in meaning so many times. And it's all rooted around this character I love and I just want so much more from, and they never give it. And what they give me in Last Jedi, I like what it is, but it's not what I wanted. You know, it's fine to say that. It's fine to walk out of a movie and be like, that is not exactly what I wanted, but it is still quality material.
Yeah.
You know?
And I think
some people have a hard time doing that. Some people, just that gut visceral reaction of,
not what I want.
Yeah, equals it's bad, which I just don't think is the case.
Yeah.
And I think we recorded an episode a while back, which will be coming out very soon, for Dark, which was one of my favorite shows. And then after the final season came out, maybe wasn't as much of a favorite thing of mine because I thought the show was going to be something. And then when I actually got what it was, I realized that I had been watching a different show. And it's,
same.
Yeah. It's so easy to get into that when you really get passionate about something.
I've come to that impasse with Thrones, like where it just, I mean, everyone did, but it's like that. You can just have a gut reaction, and be like, just know forever. And it's hard to get out of that.
I just want to say, just to sum up my thoughts on The Mandalorian in general, to surmise, the 2 seasons and all these discussions we've had.
Yeah.
I don't think this is the best TV show, but it is currently the most spectacular, consistently. And it is only, I think, a few kind of moments and beats and just arranging things in a particular manner where the aesthetic and the music and some of the performances are already really working for me, and the characters especially really working on me on such a high level. But there's always just a few things like pulling me back down, and maybe now this Luke CGI face thing might be the biggest like slap in the face I've received from Mandalorian, where I've just gone, no. I've never felt it any other time in the show. So again, it is spectacular television. It's super cinematic and consistently so. And even when it's really brief, there's still a lot going on, and there's like wonderful artistry at work. And we're watching some of the best filmmakers and renderers of computer imagery put their work into fleshing out this universe that I love in such a different way we haven't seen before. It's not always what I want, but it is often really good. And just don't CGI anyone's face again, and I think I'll be pretty happy. Yeah. And your friend said, I hope they just cast Luke in the next season, and then he can just be an actor in all the shows. I want him to interact with Ahsoka. Yes. I want him for 3 episodes next season in Mandalorian.
Oh, yeah.
I'd like for him to go back to Tatooine and be like, Boba Fett, what the fuck are you doing here?
Oh my God! He's like, you only get 1 season, because Boba Fett kills him. Back in the pit.
Luke Skywalker will have a different relationship with all of these characters, but if they don't want to treat him like a character, then he'll never be anything more than a hollow CGI puppet, than a Darth Vader parading around in the suit, but nothing actually there. Him not actually being a character in Rogue One. They just wake him up, turn him on, and he rocks up at the end.
Like the droids.
Yeah.
Charge up a bit, get him out there.
That's not who he is. He was always there on the bridge, in the ship, like paying attention to everything and like directly involved in the situation that was ongoing. That's the character he is. That's what I want him to be. I want him to be there talking to people. And he's just so revered now. He can only have a conversation with one character in a giant room with steam and Ben Mendelsohn's, can't he just fucking talk to someone for a bit?
Just sit down, have conversations. Yeah. I say sit down, but you don't have to make him casual. You can still make him what you want to do.
The filmmakers needed to detach themselves from Star Wars a little bit and just refocus on what the really important fundamentals are of telling an interesting and engaging story. And they do that so much of the time, and I know they're capable.
I was just thinking, just in terms of my brother, I mean, I'm not a writer, this isn't it, but I was just like, you know what they might need to do? It's just like, put him in the scenes without the costume on, like as another character, and make that work, then just switch him at the end. Oh, it's Darth Vader. Oh, look at this amazing character we made. You know what I mean? Like, just, get that iconography out of the way. Because for me, this is the most glaring example where I think they've been writing that line. Like, I remember hearing someone be like, that's just not Boba Fett. This is just, that's not the Boba Fett from the movies. This is new EU fan servicey Boba Fett. And I'm like, you know what?
No, well, I would actually argue it's counter to that. If it was fan servicey Boba Fett, it would just be the same thing. But it's something different. They've pushed it forward.
Well, that's what I think. I think it's really, I know, I just love how...
It's both.
Yeah,
it's
for sure.
Both
it is fan service because it is Boba Fett alive.
But it's Boba Fett with a new coat of paint, literally.
Yeah, I actually...
figuratively.
I've gotten used to the coat of paint as well. I'm on board now.
But it's them saying, no, this is him with, like...
New paint.
The visual... Like, yeah, the punch of that is what's going on in the show too. Like, he's a different character than what we really got. It is the same character, but he wasn't that in the original trilogy.
No, but I love that this guy is like, he got eaten or whatever by a Sarlacc for however long, and then like, I don't know, I just feel like I hear it in his voice and his tone and the little things they've done. I'm like, this is a new character, and I'm loving it. It's such a step up for me from season 1. It's such a step up. I liked every single one of these episodes quite a lot. I generally think that if they'd cast Luke and he'd had about a 5-10 minute scene and that they really just sat there and talked for a bit, I'd probably be like one of my favorite seasons of TV ever.
Yep.
I just cannot believe how much they shut the bed. It's kind of like watching 6 seasons of Game of Thrones and then being like, why would you ruin the ending like this? You spent so much time and money. So I don't know, I'm really, really in, but right now I'm so like, I feel so muddled and confused about the whole, I'm really sad though, and I think that's the thing where I realized as well, I'm like, I'm sad because they parted ways and it was just so tragically sad, but beautiful, and I don't actually feel like he was stolen away. It was the perfect thing. Luke Skywalker, he's doing the shit with Jedi right now. It's perfect. And it's like, wow, I don't know. There's something to be said when something ends and you're like, I didn't realize it was over so soon. I didn't realize this part of the chapter, even though it might not be the end, they will definitely see each other, but it's like, wow, like that story where at the end of season 1, she's like, you will find the enemy sorcerers and give them back their little baby. He did it. And I don't know. So I think for me, the show works perfectly. Ebbs and flows with little bits. I just prefer 5 to 10 minutes of every episode of a conversation. I love that. But I guess that's just not what this show does. The show, I put it on, it's like, dun, 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 Star Wars, and it's like, shit. And I'm like, oh my God, talking, bam in the head, The Mandalorian. And I'm like, oh my God, it's been 45 seconds. You know, it just gets to it. And I love that about it. I've absolutely adored doing this week by week. I think I've gotten way too into it at times. But everything that I've disliked, I've kind of gone back on and been like, actually, I've got a bit too Clone Wars heavy midway. But it's like my brain with the show. But I love this show so much. I think The Mandalorian and Baby Yoda at the moment are up there with my 2 favorite characters. I really just love their interactions. But I also... yeah, I don't know. I bet you if I just chucked on Last Jedi, I'd be like, Kylo Ren is so good. Kylo Ren is everything. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's just, I'm just so into it right now. But they are really up there with my, like, I really, really enjoy how much they've taken them from last season. And even though it's just little stuff. But it's, I don't know. I love the show. Yeah,
and I love, cybernetic space wizards with laser swords. And I think that... you can dangle that in front of me and like a cat, I'll pour at it. But what you really need to do is give me something to chew on and something a bit richer and make it a character and make me invested. So when they go, I'm actually like really in.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Just on that, I think one final thing. I think the first season gets a little bit to get into. But I think when I watched it as a whole thing, I was like, I actually like this arc. And I think because there's so much non-dialogue with the man with no face and a puppet interacting, that it's like a whole episode will happen, then they'll just do a thing. It's like, that's it. The whole episode was there for that 2-minute thing at the end. There's a lot of that. And when you really watch it all works really well. But sometimes, especially week to week, you're like, I'd love a 50-minute... give me some stuff to chew on. The other show I just watched, The Boys, for instance. It's like, it's mostly talking. It's all stuff to chew on. And I would just, I'd love them to get some Mandalorian money, to show me some stuff. Like, I don't know. So yeah, maybe a bit more Mandalorian and The Boys and a bit more The Boys and The Mandalorian. Or any show where they talk. I don't know, West Wing or whatever. Yeah, I'm very keen for next season, but I'm also really trepidatious. Depends on what they do.
Yeah.
I don't know. Some of the Mandalorian stuff is like the best and worst stuff in Clone Wars. So I'm afraid it goes too heavy in that. But also, he's a Mandalorian, and that's his whole jam. So that could be really interesting to throw him in that. get that helmet off a bunch next season, buddy. Like,
Yeah, well, yeah, get him. I think just continuing with where we left him and have him go to Mandalore and go on some adventures with Bo-Katan and the crew and
kill some people. He's gonna have to fight a Mandalorian and then get a bit of their helmet off so he can chop their head off.
he also has a Darksaber and a Beskar spear now. So
He's so OP now.
we go into
He keeps upgrading.
so that's exciting.
That is very exciting. I am really excited for more Darksaber action. God damn, that fight was cool.
One thing, just tiny tidbit, kind of like a weirdly horrific blaster shot when the Imperial guy shoots his buddy or the co-pilot, but the guy
yeah.
kind of like screams in the funniest way and dies. I almost think he didn't die and he just like nicked him the way he screamed. It was so strange.
Yeah.
Just that whole...
It's because he goes, He does two sounds, and the first sound is, yeah, he's died, and then the second sound is after. I think that might be what it is, because, yeah, as soon as you said that, I'm like, oh, yeah, no. Real weird moment. But then it gets straight back to the, so you kind of move on.
Boba Fett is a real threat, isn't he? And you feel that. It's like you're being boarded. Get ready.
Yeah. It's...
clunk, clunk, clunk. Oh.
I did really love when his ship just appears. Like, it's just like, actually, last thing. New ship speculation. Does Boba Fett give him the Boba Fett ship and Boba Fett chills on a planet?
Oh, I like Boba Fett having... That's his dad's ship,
No, okay, because I was like, I don't know, part of me was like, that was actually really cool, but then I was like, no, they're not doing what I want for the Boba Fett show, so I take that back. Because he'll have to fly the ship around. In my mind, I like the idea of him sitting there and like, just drinking and being like, yesterday, I don't know, and then just cutting back to him reading a book of his, I don't know. I don't know what I imagined.
I think what we're going to see from the character of Din Djarin is now probably some turmoil within him about his religious or philosophical creed and what it actually means to him. And now that, like he found Grogu and had this relationship and found more meaning in that than he did with this identity he's had his entire life, how he's going to grapple with that, where he's going to go from here. Is he going to drift to another sect? Will he go back and find the old crew and try and reconnect with them and, get them all to team up? I mean, they're all Mandalorians at the end of the day, and Bo-Katan does kind of say in this, if we had gone to the Empire with this kind of fight, we wouldn't be in the situation we're in. The show's called The Mandalorian.
You're right.
If they go back to Mandalore, and
they will. Because when she said that at the start of the episode, I'm like, that's...
They've said it a couple of times now, yeah?
Yeah, and that's them setting it up, because that's the same scene as in season 1, episode 8, when she's like, now you must take the baby and find the Jedi. And he's like, all right. Because she's like, the plot of this story is over. Now
so the trailer for season 3 will be like Bo-Katan's voiceover.
Oh my God. It's gonna be...
over him on a boat again.
I was so curious. Where's he going on a boat? Nowhere. Fucking no, who cares? The last thing, Bo-Katan. I almost forgot. I'm like, I'll die if I'm driving home and we didn't talk about this. Is she dead? Because she gets shot like 55 times. He shoots her in all the non-armor spots. And she's like, dunk. He gets so many shots out. I'm like, you all have guns on him. Shoot him. Shoot him. He kills her so much. And then she doesn't get up again.
I missed that both times.
So
I've seen it twice.
So Moff Gideon looks at Luke and Luke's like, just killing everyone. And Moff Gideon's like, oh, fuck, it's Luke Skywalker. Oh my God, no. And he gets because he's hidden the gun under his cloak or like slimly. He turns around and he takes like 15 shots, probably like 6 or 7. So many shots. At Bo-Katan, she drops. Then he goes to kill Baby Yoda. He's like, bam, 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 bam.
Yeah,
and Din Djarin jumps in front. I don't know.
No, she didn't die because there would have to be a moment for that character.
Yeah, but
to be like she died.
Rewatch it. There's so much overkill, and it makes no sense to me why we wouldn't just. I don't know. It was.
You sure it wasn't hitting her armor?
Maybe just the way she fell and like looking at it, I was like, of course, when you're in those moments though, I find it very. It's like, to me, that moment is shocking because he's killed one of them. There's actual stakes suddenly, but there's no time, and I actually really like the idea of like someone dying. There's no time because something's happened, but then it just ends. So I don't like the idea of next season. Din Djarin's like, I'm bringing back her body to Mandalore. Maybe that's what they'll do actually. Just because her plot felt like she was over, like her being like, I can't take that off you. It's like, well, you either got to fight him, so you should have just fought him then, or you should have just done what you did in Rebels and take it. Or this kind of felt like him being like, oh, I accidentally took the right to Mandalore, so now I'll go do that, I guess. The more I'm talking about it, I'm like, I'm getting a little excited.
Yeah. He's looking...
The idea of him jetpacking in with the sword, it's like, oh my God, he's got a lightsaber now, but it's black.
You can just add it to his belt of stuff, you know?
No, yeah, actually, you're right. It'll give him time to flesh out, become more of a character. Then they won't be able to rely on just cutting to Baby Yoda every, like the people who's like, I'll kill all of you. And then Baby Yoda's like, oh, and like puts the down. I'm like, it doesn't matter what the fight is now. Baby Yoda's so good. So I'll have to really focus on making sure he's always great, but it's...
He does seem like a man without an identity, in that his identity is so wrapped up in being a Mandalorian that he doesn't even really know who he is. And then forming a meaningful connection with Grogu taught him things about himself he didn't,
And then going alone with all this new discovery to Mandalore, the place where he thought his identity was from, to be an actual person. This is writing itself.
And then being faced with the harsh reality of what's actually there, whatever that is. And
then Baby Grogu appears in episode 6.
Because it's not anything. Like, the Mandalorians are just people who put armor on. And it's just a rare type of metal there's not a lot of. And it's only what they believe in that ties them together.
Yeah.
And the second you stop believing, well, you're not that anymore. So who is he? Who knows?
You've written the perfect pitch for season 3. Where I'm like, I've changed my mind. I'm actually really keen for that. More so than any of the other shows. Because I like this character. And you saying all this, I'm like, no, yeah.
You know when he takes his helmet off and it's just like a scared man underneath? And you realize he doesn't interact with people like this. So why would he have a facial expression that's emotive and over the top? And, he's used to just nodding and giving very little and not doing much under there. Like, has this man even seen his own reflection? Does he even know what he looks like? He's had the mask on his whole life. I don't know what the rules are.
Yeah.
I'm like Bill Burr. Thank you for watching Spoiler Talk, where we've talked all the spoilers about Mandalorian. Tune in to the next episode, which will be Marriage Story.
Oh, super exciting. No more stupid Star Wars stuff.
Follow Spoiler Talk on Instagram @SpoilerTalk. Follow BlackRock Broadcasting, our film and television broadcasting network, also featuring Jax's other podcast, Two Brothers, One Pilot.
Watch a pilot each week and talk about it, review it.
Or watch 12 pilots.
Oh my God, for Christmas we watched 12 pilots and I yelled very quickly for 12 minutes.
But yeah, we got lots of episodes coming up. Marriage Story, Uncut Gems, Parasite, Handmaiden, all of these things.
Movies, no more Star Wars.
Yeah, some Doctor Who.
Oh my God.
Some Kurosawa.
I'm really excited for Doctor Who.
So many things, yeah. Are you going to listen to any of them?
Yeah, I'll listen to some.
Oh, yeah?
I'll listen to bits.
Interesting.
Get me back into the Doctor Who vibes, yeah. Or some of the others.
See if we agree with what we said half a year ago. Follow BlackRock Broadcasting. It's @BR Broadcast on Twitter and @BlackRock Broadcasting on Facebook and Instagram. And if you're listening, check us out on YouTube. And if you're watching, you can get us audio only everywhere you get your podcast, except for you, Apple Podcasts, because...
Really? Still?
Oh
my God, there's some of the bitches!
That's where all the people are too! 50% of podcasts I listen to on Apple Podcasts.
Yeah, I only listen via there, yeah. Oh my God.
Yeah, I need to get that sorted, but I don't have any Apple devices, and it's really hard to set up podcasting stuff when you don't have an iPhone.
I'll see if I can figure something out there.
Yeah. Anyway, enough behind the scenes.
Well, yeah, thanks for watching, and this will come out after, but Merry Christmas!
Yeah.
Very close to Christmas Eve. Oh yeah, just hold on.
We can end the way we began.
Oh yeah, true. Thanks for watching, guys. Mandalorian, 8 weeks, 8 episodes.